Welcome back to the Bitcoin Zodiac, where we explore Bitcoin through the lens of financial astrology and focus on generational cycles over short-term noise. July carries the feeling of standing at the edge of something new. The first half of 2026 asked for courage. July asks for trust. There is movement beneath the surface that may not yet be visible in the price, in the headlines, or even in our personal lives. Small choices can create lasting consequences. Conversations can redirect the future. A single insight may shift the course of your life more than months of effort. For Bitcoin, July feels like a month of maturation. Several rare outer planet alignments continue supporting the technological and societal transformation unfolding across this decade. At the same time, Bitcoin receives a series of important transits to its natal chart. Together, these transits speak to changing investor psychology, greater institutional interest, technological progress, and the continued evolution of Bitcoin from a speculative asset into something closer to global financial infrastructure. Conviction may be tested this month, but confidence may also begin to expand. Let's move through the astrology. On July 14th, we have a new moon at 21 degrees of Cancer. This new moon feels like coming home to yourself. Cancer reminds us that every dream needs roots before it can grow. Before rushing toward the next goal, we are invited to strengthen the foundations beneath us. Home, family, emotional security, nourishment, and belonging become important areas for reflection and intention setting. This new moon asks, what helps you feel emotionally safe? Where have you been caring for everyone except yourself? What kind of life would your nervous system genuinely enjoy living? Cancer understands that intuition becomes easier to hear when life feels less chaotic. This is a powerful moment to plant intentions that support the person you are becoming, rather than trying to prove who you have been. In financial markets, Cancer brings attention to safety, preservation, and protection. Investors may become more aware of risk management, capital security, and the long-term reliability of the systems holding their wealth. For Bitcoin, this raises deeply Cancerian questions. Where should wealth be stored? Which monetary systems deserve long-term trust? What provides security during economic or political uncertainty? The conversation may begin shifting away from speculation and toward resilience. This new moon supports reviewing custody arrangements, refining investment plans, and considering whether your portfolio reflects the financial future you genuinely believe is emerging. It favors preparation over impulsiveness. Also on July 14th, transiting Chiron squares Bitcoin's natal Venus. In Bitcoin's chart, Venus speaks to value, market attraction, financial confidence, and the way investors perceive Bitcoin's worth. Chiron reveals a wound that can eventually become a source of wisdom. When Chiron forms a square, it can bring discomfort to the surface so that something deeper can be understood. This transit may coincide with renewed questioning around Bitcoin's value proposition. Old criticisms could return. Media narratives may amplify doubt. Regulatory concerns, market disappointment, or uncertainty around price could create a temporary loss of confidence. This does not automatically suggest structural weakness. Chiron often exposes where greater maturity is needed. For long-term investors, this transit asks a revealing question. Is your conviction based on price, or is it based on understanding? Periods of uncertainty often separate temporary enthusiasm from genuine belief. For traders, this may be a time to watch emotional reactions carefully. If sentiment weakens quickly, avoid assuming that fear alone confirms a lasting bearish trend. For investors, it may be helpful to revisit the original reason you entered the market and decide whether that thesis has materially changed. On July 15th, Uranus in Gemini forms a sextile to retrograde Neptune in Aries. Something begins to feel possible that once seemed unrealistic. Uranus in Gemini stimulates fresh ideas, new communication systems, digital innovation, and unconventional ways of thinking. Neptune in Aries reconnects vision with action. Together, they allow imagination and technology to support one another. Personally, this may bring a creative breakthrough or a solution that had been hidden in plain sight. You may feel drawn towards spiritual practices that feel more modern and practical. Conversations can expand your perspective. A new technology may suddenly reveal a meaningful purpose. Pay attention to ideas that arrive unexpectedly. For Bitcoin, this aspect is especially relevant. Uranus governs technology, decentralization, disruption, and invention. Neptune governs ideals, collective dreams, and emerging belief systems. Bitcoin exists at the meeting point of these two archetypes. It is technological infrastructure supported by a philosophical vision of monetary independence. This transit may encourage developers, entrepreneurs, institutions, and governments to imagine new uses for Bitcoin and blockchain technology beyond speculative trading. Infrastructure can improve quietly under an aspect like this. Adoption may expand before price fully reflects the progress taking place beneath the surface. Long-term investors may benefit from watching development, regulation, custody, payments, and network participation rather than focusing only on headlines. On July 17th, Uranus in Gemini trines retrograde Pluto in Aquarius. This is one of the defining signatures of 2026 and one of the most important generational aspects shaping this decade. Transformation does not always arrive through crisis. Sometimes it arrives because society is finally ready to build differently. Pluto in Aquarius continues reshaping institutions, technology, communities, finance, and collective power. Uranus in Gemini accelerates learning, communication, artificial intelligence, digital infrastructure, and information networks. Together, these planets support the release of outdated systems and ways of thinking. The changes may feel more natural than forced because the trine allows innovation and transformation to work together. For Bitcoin, this is profoundly supportive of long-term adoption. Bitcoin belongs within both planetary stories. Uranus speaks to decentralized technology. Pluto in Aquarius speaks to the restructuring of collective systems and the redistribution of power. Under this influence, Bitcoin may increasingly be understood as infrastructure rather than simply an investment. That distinction matters. Infrastructure has utility that can endure through market cycles. This does not mean price moves in a straight line. It suggests that the deeper foundations supporting Bitcoin's relevance may continue strengthening. For investors, the longer-term signal is more important than the short-term reaction. Watch where governments, corporations, institutions, and communities begin treating Bitcoin as part of a financial or technological system rather than merely a trade.
I'm pausing this episode for just a moment to share with you one of our partners, the Sculpt Society. I'm obsessed with TSS, created by celebrity trainer Megan Roop. It's not just another fitness app, it's the most fun you'll ever have working out. You'll find sculpt, strength, and dance cardio all in one super accessible method that actually works. Whether you have 10 minutes or 50, want low impact sculpting or full body dance cardio, the Sculpt Society has you covered. Inside the app, you'll find over 900 on-demand workouts and weekly live classes, plus curated programs that meet you wherever you are, beginner, advanced, or even pre or postnatal. There's no complicated choreography, no guilt, just movement that makes you feel confident and strong in your own skin. You can stream from any device, anywhere in the world, and even download classes to work out offline. It doesn't matter whether you're in your living room or in a hotel room. So if you've been waiting for a sign to get back into your body and feel good, this is it. Click on the link in the description box and join the Sculpt Society to start your 7-day free trial today. You'll feel the difference after just one class. Let's get back into the episode.
Also on July 17th, transiting Jupiter trines Bitcoin's natal Jupiter. This is one of Bitcoin's most constructive personal transits of 2026. In Bitcoin's natal chart, Jupiter describes expansion, international reach, optimism, legal development, institutional growth, and the ability to attract opportunity. When transiting Jupiter forms a trine to natal Jupiter, those qualities become easier to express. This can support increased institutional confidence, improved regulatory clarity, broader international participation, and greater acceptance of Bitcoin as a legitimate financial asset. Large capital allocators may become more comfortable treating Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset rather than a purely speculative position. A trine does not usually force progress. It reduces friction. The opportunity may appear through developments that feel natural or overdue rather than dramatic. For long-term investors, this transit can reward positions established before optimism becomes widespread. For traders, it may support a bullish bias, although the wider July astrology still asks for careful risk management, because optimism can become excessive later in the month. On the same day, transiting Uranus also trines Bitcoin's natal moon. The moon in Bitcoin's chart reflects collective sentiment, emotional response, public perception, and the way the market instinctively relates to Bitcoin. Uranus brings surprise, freedom, rapid change, and innovation. This combination may coincide with a sudden shift in sentiment. People who previously dismissed Bitcoin may become curious. Unexpected adoption stories could emerge. Technological improvements may make Bitcoin easier to access or use. Institutional narratives can also change quickly under Uranian influence. The trine suggests that the shift may be constructive and easier to absorb. This is an important reminder that sentiment sometimes changes before price establishes a sustained trend. Watching public interest, network activity, institutional flows, and adoption metrics may provide useful context alongside the chart. On July 20th, Jupiter in Leo trines retrograde, Neptune in Aries. Hope returns. Jupiter in Leo expands confidence, creativity, generosity, visibility, and faith in personal potential. Neptune in Aries encourages us to act on a vision that once felt distant. This transit can reconnect people with dreams they quietly abandoned. Something you once wanted may begin calling to you again. If an idea still lights up your heart after all this time, there may be wisdom in paying attention. You do not need to know every step before beginning. In financial markets, Jupiter trine Neptune can increase optimism and strengthen belief in a larger story. Narratives can become more persuasive. Investors may become increasingly willing to believe in long-term transformation. For Bitcoin, this can support greater acceptance of the idea that the global monetary system is changing. However, Neptune always requires discernment. A compelling vision is not the same as evidence. Inspiring ideas still need to be examined carefully. This aspect can support market optimism, but it can also make speculative narratives feel more convincing than they deserve. Remain open to possibility while staying grounded in data. Hope is useful when it works alongside discipline. Later on July 20th, Jupiter opposes retrograde Pluto. This is one of the most powerful market aspects of the month. Jupiter expands whatever it touches. Pluto reveals power, control, concentrated wealth, and the deeper forces shaping institutions. An opposition creates tension between competing positions. Personally, this aspect asks us to examine where ambition has become entangled with control. Are you expanding because you feel inspired, or are you trying to prove something? Power dynamics may become more visible in leadership, business, relationships, and financial decision-making. For Bitcoin and the wider financial system, this opposition may expose tension between established institutions and emerging alternatives. Governments, central banks, regulators, banks, and major financial organizations could respond more forcefully as Bitcoin's influence continues to grow. This aspect can coincide with power struggles, regulatory pressure, aggressive market positioning, or intense competition for control over capital and financial narratives. Volatility may increase because competing visions of economic power become harder to ignore. Price swings can feel emotionally persuasive under Jupiter and Pluto. A strong rally may create the belief that resistance has disappeared. A sharp correction may create the belief that the long-term story has failed. Neither reaction should automatically be trusted. This transit asks investors to distinguish between temporary volatility and structural change. Large market participants may reposition around this period, so traders should be especially mindful of liquidity, leverage, and emotional overreaction. On July 21st, Jupiter forms a sextile to Uranus. Fresh opportunities may appear with surprising ease. This aspect supports innovation, entrepreneurship, technological growth, learning, travel, and new connections. Doors may open through conversations, unexpected invitations, or people who introduce you to an unfamiliar way of thinking. Remain flexible. The opportunity may arrive in a form you did not anticipate. For Bitcoin, Jupiter and Uranus are naturally compatible. Jupiter expands, Uranus disrupts and innovates. Together, they can support unexpected developments that strengthen confidence in technology and digital assets. This could appear through institutional announcements, corporate adoption, regulatory changes, new financial products, improved infrastructure, or technological breakthroughs. The exact catalyst cannot be predicted from the aspect alone. The broader message is that opportunity may arrive through surprise. Investors who remain mentally flexible may be better positioned to recognize its significance. Also on July 21st, transiting Jupiter squares Bitcoin's natal Venus. This introduces a note of caution after several supportive transits. Jupiter expands everything it touches. Venus governs value, valuation, attraction, and market confidence. A square can reveal excess. Optimism may become inflated. Price may temporarily move ahead of underlying progress. Media enthusiasm can become louder than careful analysis. This does not automatically indicate a market top. It does suggest that valuation and expectations may need to be examined. This aspect can increase the temptation to chase price, increase leverage, or assume that recent gains will continue without interruption. For investors, this is a useful moment to review position size and risk exposure. For traders, watch for signs of euphoria, crowded positioning, failed breakouts, or sharp reactions after positive news. Jupiter can magnify opportunity, but it can also magnify overconfidence. Humility becomes an important form of risk management. On July 22nd, the Sun enters Leo. The atmosphere becomes warmer, brighter, and more expressive. Leo season reminds us that confidence grows through participation. Your creativity wants to be shared. Your gifts want to be seen. Your heart wants to lead. Rather than waiting until you feel completely qualified, consider whether your perspective could contribute something meaningful. For Bitcoin, Leo season may bring increased visibility and media attention. Public figures could speak more openly about digital assets. Corporate leaders may become more comfortable expressing conviction. Bitcoin may take on a larger role in political, cultural, or financial narratives. However, visibility and value are not always the same thing. Leo can draw attention toward personalities, bold declarations, and dramatic headlines. Investors should continue watching the quieter developments taking place behind the scenes. Also on July 22nd, retrograde Neptune sextiles retrograde Pluto. This is a slower and more subtle influence. It supports a deep transformation in humanity's relationship with trust. Trust in institutions, trust in money, trust in technology, trust in systems that operate without a central authority. Because Neptune and Pluto move slowly, this aspect unfolds over years rather than days. It speaks to a gradual dissolving of inherited beliefs and the creation of new collective values. For Bitcoin, this supports the broader philosophical shift that makes decentralized money easier for future generations to understand. Younger people may increasingly question why money must be controlled by centralized institutions. The transition may feel gradual while it is happening. Its full importance may only become obvious in hindsight. On July 23rd, Mercury stations direct at 16 degrees of Cancer. Communication begins to flow more easily. If Mercury retrograde stirred misunderstandings, emotional conversations, delayed decisions, or changing plans, this station can help untangle what became complicated. The answers you have been searching for may already exist inside conversations you recently had. Return to unfinished projects. Review old notes. Revisit research. You may now understand something that was unclear several weeks ago. In financial markets, Mercury direct can help restore confidence around communication, negotiation, data, regulation, and policy. Delayed announcements may move forward. Negotiations may conclude. Information that felt contradictory may become easier to interpret. Allow several days for the station to settle before assuming that every signal is reliable. For Bitcoin investors, this can be a productive time to review research completed during the retrograde and decide what remains valid. For traders, market direction may become clearer after the initial volatility around the station passes.
I'm briefly interrupting this episode to speak to you about one of our partners, Ritual Supplements, and in particular, Ritual Stress Relief. It's the first of its kind supplement powered by Bioseries technology.
On July 26th, we have our headline transit as the lunar nodes change signs and dramatically shift our collective energy for the next year and a half. The North Node enters Aquarius, while the South Node enters Leo. This is the ingress that has preceded every major financial crisis and reset since the 1800s, including the 1929 Great Depression and 2008 global financial crisis. This is one of the most significant astrological shifts of the year, and perhaps the most important long-term development of July for Bitcoin. The lunar nodes describe the direction of collective growth and the patterns humanity is being asked to release. Throughout this transit, the North Node entering Aquarius pulls energy directly into evolving technology, while the South Node moving into Leo purges speculative vanity. Aquarius governs technology, decentralization, networks, communities, open source development, shared intelligence, and systems designed for collective participation. Bitcoin embodies many of these Aquarian principles. As the North Node enters Aquarius, collective attention may increasingly move towards systems that distribute power rather than concentrate it. Digital identity, artificial intelligence, open monetary networks, decentralized technology, and community-led innovation may become more important during the next 18 months. The South Node in Leo asks society to examine its dependence on charismatic authority, individual leaders, celebrity figures, and personality-driven systems. This can gradually change the way financial trust is formed. Trust may begin moving away from individuals and toward transparent systems, verifiable rules, and protocols. That has profound implications for Bitcoin. Bitcoin does not require a charismatic leader to function. It does not ask users to trust a central authority. Its rules can be verified by the network. This nodal shift also connects with a subject we have been covering for a long time here at the Bitcoin Zodiac, the geometry of confidence and the 18-year nodal reset. There is a repeating economic pulse, lasting roughly 18 to 20 years, that appears across real estate cycles, credit expansions, banking crises, and major changes in public trust. Mainstream economists often describe crashes and financial panics as unpredictable black swans. Yet when these events are studied across longer periods of history, a recognizable rhythm begins to emerge. That rhythm closely mirrors the lunar nodal cycle, which takes approximately 18.6 years to complete. Financial astrologer Louise McWhirter explored this connection in her 1938 book, Astrology and Stock Market Forecasting. She viewed the moon's nodes as a master clock for collective confidence and the business cycle. In McWhirter's framework, the North Node in Leo is associated with rising confidence, speculation, and powerful animal spirits. The North Node in Aquarius marks the opposite end of that cycle, when confidence can contract and the weaknesses within the previous period of expansion are exposed. Economist Philip J. Anderson reached a remarkably similar conclusion through a very different method. In The Secret Life of Real Estate and Banking Anderson traced an 18-year real estate cycle driven by land speculation, bank credit, and rising property values. He describes a long expansion followed by a shorter debt crisis, with the final years of the upswing often producing extreme speculation and what he calls the winner's curse. We are currently witnessing this in AI speculative markets. When McWhirter's nodal cycle is placed alongside Anderson's real estate cycle, the patterns appear to converge around periods of major financial stress and economic restructuring. Both frameworks point toward 2026 and 2027 as a potentially significant turning point in the current cycle of credit, property, debt, and confidence. This is where Bitcoin becomes especially relevant. Bitcoin was born from the failures exposed by the 2008 financial crisis. It was designed as an alternative to a monetary system dependent on expanding debt, centralized control, and trust in financial intermediaries. As we enter another nodal reset, Bitcoin may be approaching the kind of environment it was created to address. It can be understood as a form of digital land, scarce, foundational, and independent of central bank credit creation. It is also a counterparty-free asset. Bitcoin held in self-custody is not another institution's liability. Perhaps most importantly, it provides a transparent and auditable system at a time when confidence in traditional institutions may be weakening. The North Node in Aquarius certainly does not guarantee higher prices as traditional systems and markets collapse. It does suggest that the wider collective direction becomes increasingly aligned with the principles Bitcoin represents. This period may support a deeper cultural understanding of why decentralized money matters. If you would like to explore the 18-year nodal reset, Louise McWhirter's confidence cycle, Philip J. Anderson's real estate cycle, and Bitcoin's role within the changing financial order in greater detail, you can read my article titled Bitcoin and the Astrology of the Changing World Order, ***, linked in the description box below. On July 29th, we have a full moon at 6 degrees and 30 minutes of Aquarius. This full moon illuminates the space between individuality and belonging. You may recognize where you have outgrown certain groups, identities, or expectations. At the same time, you may discover communities that better reflect who you are becoming. Aquarius reminds us that authentic connection cannot be created through self-abandonment. There is no need to make yourself smaller to remain accepted somewhere you have already outgrown. For Bitcoin, this lunation may bring visibility to developments that have been quietly strengthening throughout July. Institutional participation, network development, technological infrastructure, and community growth may become easier to recognize. The full moon could also reveal tension between the individual desire for recognition and the collective purpose of decentralized systems. This is especially relevant because the South Node has just entered Leo. The market may be asked to move beyond personality-driven narratives and return its attention to the strength of the network itself. The full moon may also expose where emotional attachment to short-term price movements has distracted investors from the larger story. Aquarius encourages us to step back and widen the time horizon. Transformational technologies rarely evolve in a straight line. Concluding this episode, July appears to be less focused on one explosive turning point and more concerned with strengthening Bitcoin's long-term foundation. The supportive transits involving Jupiter and Uranus suggest continued potential for adoption, technological progress, positive sentiment, and growing institutional confidence. The challenging contacts from Chiron and Jupiter remind us that confidence can become unstable when expectations move faster than reality. Periods of doubt may alternate with periods of exuberance. That emotional movement can create opportunities, but it can also test investor discipline. The most important development may not appear in the daily price chart. The North Node's entry into Aquarius describes a wider collective movement toward decentralized systems, network-based participation, and technologies that distribute power. Bitcoin remains closely aligned with that direction. For long-term investors, July encourages patience. Continue building knowledge, review your custody and risk management, separate lasting structural trends from temporary market emotion. For traders, remain alert around the Jupiter-Pluto opposition and the Jupiter square to Bitcoin's natal Venus. These aspects may amplify volatility, overconfidence, and emotionally driven price action. Avoid treating astrology as a guarantee of direction. Use it as a timing framework that helps you understand the psychological and collective conditions surrounding the market. July begins by asking us to strengthen our emotional foundations. It ends by widening our view of the future. We are being encouraged to trust new ideas, reconnect with meaningful dreams, and remain open to a financial system that may look very different from the one we inherited. The future rarely arrives all at once. It begins with the decisions being made now. Thank you for joining me for this July 2026 forecast. Let me know in the comments which of these transits you are watching most closely and how you feel about the North Node moving into Aquarius. Remember, financial astrology is one tool for understanding market cycles. It is not financial advice, and every investment decision should be supported by your own research and risk management. As always, this channel focuses on generational trends rather than short-term price predictions. The goal is not to forecast every market move, The goal is to better understand the larger cycles shaping Bitcoin's role within the emerging financial order. If you enjoy exploring Bitcoin through the lens of astrology, economics, history, and long-term market cycles, consider subscribing and joining us for future forecasts. I'll see you in the next episode of the Bitcoin Zodiac. Until then, peace, love, and Bitcoin.